I guess I'm live. Okay. Hi guys, it's Alan again, and put that on a little bit. Yep, it's too much. Put that on a little more. It'll work. Hey guys, it's Alan. Just doing this. It's going to be on a different thing. It's something that if you're raised religious or are religious in some way, um, then there's whether Christian as far as Catholic, Protestant, could be Jewish. People who are raised in it still appreciate um, a religious life, whether Catholic or evangelical, Protestant. Um, they can all, as people go through this, just as human beings. Jewish people can go through it. Islam, it's just, but it's what I'm talking about is something. It's called scrupulosity, and scrupulosity is a form of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which affects 2 out of 100 people. And when you think of OCD, you think of hand washing and all that, but or doing things a particular number of time, and sometimes it's the issue of perfectionism. And when that kind of mental or brain, whatever basal ganglia, whatever actually causes it, it's it ends up in something a form of OCD called scrupulosity if you mix that with religion or religious belief. And what happens is that the tenets and the beliefs, the individual subjective internalized religious beliefs of a person uh, predominate the psyche of that person. Um, Whether it be magic numbers, magic, or spiritual things to help magic thinking, or if I do this, it's and there's a lot of sometimes ritual. And religion always has rituals in it, doing something a particular number of times or doing something the exact right way, making sure that your intentions behind every thought, every motive is a pure one. And the tough one with if you're raised with religion, or even if you're just a sensitive human being, um, is the idea of selfishness. Whenever you talk to a religious person who takes it seriously, the issue of selfishness, any human being for that matter, really, is this selfish or unselfish? And sometimes that pattern of, if you predominantly believe in trying to not be selfish, like what would Jesus do, or what does the religion teach? And sometimes it can overlap the morals of the superego, your conscience, can dominate the id, the ego, um, the self, just by the conscience. It's like, what does this verse say? What does um, to where OCD is one of those things is triggered by guilt or shame, and the wish to evade guilt or not the fear of guilt. Like if it's God, or if you believe in a pastor, priest, or rabbi, then it's the wish to not offend God or sin or displease God in any fashion. Now, OCD is when it's an extra notch up, where a lot of religions, sometimes, whether Christianity, Orthodox Jews, some types of evangelical, it promotes being 100% totalism, all or nothing thinking. And which it sounds great, it's exciting, but there can be a negative um, parts of it. And when you put OCD with it, um, then it can become parts that are extreme. Um, an example, and some of it can even lead to, and this is going to sound like a scary word, but the term that Christopher Hitchens, the atheist, spoke a lot about was masochism, where in the wish to please God so much, um, and a sincere person wants to do that if you're religious, is that um, in the wish to please God, your morality becomes so anti-self or anti-pleasure of any kind or enjoyment, to where it almost like looks like the monks of old, where they were taking whips and chains and doing that number. Now, Opus Dei stuff, I don't know if Opus Dei still does that, but um, some parts where it's guilt ridden or shame ridden. And the good thing is that lately, in the last, I would say, 50 to 60 years, there's been an advance within Christian faith and Jewish faith, and even Islam has been more appreciative of reaching out to worldly psychology. Now, there's still a strong uh, thing against psychology, worldly wisdom, but sometimes it's been there to help. There have been good, helpful people who have used both faith, biblical studies, and psychology, and kind of mended them together to help, and help a person's faith. But sometimes it's important for people to understand just what they're going through. If they have an extreme faith, or everything is from a Christian viewpoint, what would Jesus do? Or if you're Jewish, what would Jehovah ask of me? Then sometimes in the wish to please God, it can be just very strong and too much, to where it's just a guilt ridden, shame based. And there's a lot of people who have left the faith who are, and I spent 20 years studying this, reading tons of books um, on apostates, people who have left faith. Some have become atheists, and some people, and I've studied books, tons of books on people who were atheists and then became religious and became members of the Freedom from Religion Foundation or American Atheists. Because the subject is such an interesting one, I went through a process myself. I'm a believer myself in faith, um, but it was the fine tuning argument and the free will. I think free will, I believe in it. I think it shows dualism, um, a soul, but I throw it out there because I don't mind, because I think those are, for me, I don't mind putting, I think those are things that I think it's way 1,000 times more rational to believe in. But the rest, on some things, I can't say 100%. I know this, or I'm not sure what to believe. So, but anyway, for people, if they're of Jewish faith, and there might be an issue of fanaticism, here's a book called Piety and Fanaticism by Sarah Epstein Weinstein. And that deals with the issue of fanaticism. And here's another one of Jewish faith, Jennifer Trigg, Devil in the Details. This is good and funny too. She talks about her being a young Jewish lady, girl, being raised trying to be pretty orthodox with the 613 roles and still trying to do everything right, and her coming out of that. I think she still has some faith, but it's not. It's just the whole process of leaving that type of rigid type of Jewish faith for more balanced. Another good book that would also help people is this one. This is called Understanding Scrupulosity. Scrupulosity is, well, the word scruple is Latin for a sharp stone, like a sharp stone that pricks your conscience, in essence. This is written by Father Santa. That's his picture, if you can see it. Brilliant Catholic priest, and he helps people of the Catholic or Protestant faith um, who are going through this OCD. Um, is this, whether they're doubts about the faith, their apologetics, and is this constant, am I doing this the right way? Am I doing this? Is this good or is this bad? They literally go through their entire life. And I can understand this myself, having gone through this, ruminating your everyday experience, saying, is this the right thing to do? Um, is this a sin? Is this a right thing morally? And you look at every detail of your life through a fine-tooth comb. Did I act selfish? Did I do this, or should I? Almost looking to see if you should feel guilt about something. Now I'm better for that. I mean, not in that strength anymore having that happen, but to understand the process of what you and other people have gone through when you're religious, whether Jewish and even in Islam. And if you're not familiar with Islam, like most, if you're not raised in any religion, you're not as familiar with it. But it's just it's something that people go through. And if you're raised Jewish and you have that genetic part of your brain, it can affect OCD can affect you with that type of scrupulosity, no matter if it's Jewish, uh, Christian, Protestant, Catholic, Islam. It's just the sincere wish to please God, um, and be faithful to the tenets of your faith and have your conscience at ease and not feel guilty or like you're doing something wrong or sinful. Anyway, these are very good books. This is Understanding Scrupulosity by Father Thomas Santa. This one is Devil in Details by a person from Jewish Scrupulosity, Jennifer Trigg. This one's not so much just scrupulosity, but it's rabbinic criticism of religious stringency, which is kind of the same idea, piety and fanaticism for the Jewish faith. And it's interesting. It seems that at least now we have more of an understanding of scrupulosity and religious zealousness. Scrupulosity has been around for at least the Catholic understanding. They're the experts on scrupulosity because they've been able to understand it and see it in their priests and monks for years. And they didn't know their official name for it, but they've seen it. It's just this over tendency to feel guilt or analyze every detail of your life. Did you do this right? Did you do that? Fear of offending God, fear of sinning. Um, just a real perfectionistic wish to not sin or displease God in any way. And to do it, and normally people with that type of OCD, they study their religion. They want to make sure it's done right. They know their theology. Um, they try, try not to do things that could be viewed wrong. Like if they stub their toe and say shit, it's like, oh, did they do something wrong? Or get mad and accidentally call somebody an asshole. No, I'm more, yeah, it's fine for me now, but this could have been some years ago. I don't call people that, or not to their face. I might think it, but normally I'm pretty nice, so people are pretty nice to me. That was before becoming a targeted individual, of course, with V2K, but that's another story. So, anyway, this was the most important book outside of the Bible. This was the most popular book in Christianity, in the world, next to the Bible, The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. And the problem is, it wasn't just the most important in the Catholic understanding, it was the most important in Protestant also. It's a great devotional, but one looks at it and reads through it, and it seems very dedicated and everything, but so much of it is, for lack of a better word, masochistic. It is, I just flippantly opened up something. The soul that loveth God despises all things that are less than God. Or this, um, anything. Turn thee unto the Lord. It's just, and quit this miserable world. It's just, I just open up like that. And there's this negative thing about holiness and striving for pure perfection. And if you mess up, then you're miserable and you're terrible. And it's nice that in the 60s, I know that a lot of biblicist theologians don't like the Norman Vincent Peale, this Christian self-help things, Joyce Meyer, or Joel Osteen. But I think it's nice and good that in the last 50, 60 years that Christianity has tried to make people feel better about themselves and feel better about their lives. Whether if it's biblically accurate or it's not going to be like this. But sometimes some of the religious people have such a purposely are so guilt ridden over the smallest things that something that finally reaches out to them and makes them feel better. And a lot of people are already pretty good people. Already super good people. But these are people that literally will look at themselves and try to find the smallest thing to feel guilt about. They look for guilt in themselves because they really want to please God in every detail. Perfectionism. And if they know they haven't done it, they become overly sensitive to their own guilt of anything. I mean, did I do this right? Did I do that? And it can happen to people of the Christian faith, Jewish, Islam, even. Uh, Hindu. There's a religion out there called Jainism. Now, I think when you're raised with perfectionistic Christianity, like monks or where they, don't have sex or, celibacy and all that, there is a religion out there called Jainism. And sometimes we're not the only ones that get kind of messed up. Jewish, Christians, whatever, or Islam. Jainism has such a perfectionistic, Jainism, is that these are people and they're priests. They put a mask over their face and nose like we do now during a pandemic, but they do this all the time, every day, in order to make sure that gnats and flies won't fly into their mouth or anything. They're so overly conscientious to make sure nothing suffers, which is I think it's wonderful. But they make sure that gnats and flies or nothing will enter their mouth or their nose while they're breathing. And when they walk, they make sure that they take a broom with them to make sure that while they're walking, they won't accidentally step on a microbe or a flea or an ant. I mean, so scrupulosity and religious guilt and the wish to be good. It's when you take religion and spirituality serious, it's a human condition I mean, it's not just a Jewish Old Testament thing. It's not just a Christian New Testament thing. Um, there are people in other religions that take it just as strong, and some of them to the point of what could only be called masochism, almost self-loathing, trying to find guilt. So I think it's good that there's people out there like Christian psychologists and or even regular psychologists that try to help people feel better about their day, and if they are screwing up their life, then try to get them to get back on the right track and try to help them out. So, and there's a thing out there that I like encourage you to look into. It's called the ennegram, not pentagram, not the Satan stuff, but the wisdom of the ennegram. It's a psychological tool. There's 9 different types of enneagram with different subtypes. And I encourage people to look into it to see what they can find out. Either though they will find themselves in it, and it is pretty heads on. There's a lot of regular psychologists or counselors that can look into it. There's Christian counselors and pastors that study the enneagram, and they can help you in your walk. And some of them, I think a lot of them who do literally go to the point of what would Jesus do, to the point of scrupulosity, to where they lose their own natural personality, their feelings, their thoughts, and try everything to be dominated by theology versus holiness and goodness. They're so anti-selfish, which is wonderful when it sounds like that, but they hate selfishness so much that they become anti-self. They don't listen to what they want. They don't even know how to recognize what they want, their feelings, their own actual beliefs. They just want to disappear, their personality, and try not to have it bother or affect. They are people, number 9 in the Enneagram, are people that literally try to disappear so as to not bother anybody. They literally purposely, their self-esteem or their pride, or they hate pride so much, or selfishness, that they literally try not to bother or bug anyone. And I think there's a lot of people in the Christian church who live that way, who have a good conscience, who sincerely but literally are so afraid of being selfish in any way that they become type 9s or type 1s that are trying to do everything right. And if they do screw up, cuss or something or say something could be construed as selfish. Um, Now we know the difference between people who are constantly selfish and assholes, but these are people who literally, if they accidentally say the word asshole, even under their breath, they literally think they've done something evil or bad. So, anyway, the Enneagram, and there's a lot of secular people, counselors who do it. There's a lot of Christian or religious counselors and pastors or rabbis who study the Enneagram. And I just encourage people to take a look at some books like that. There's that one. There's The Subtle Power of Spiritual Abuse. My favorite book was a book. Actually, it was written by an atheist lady. Or actually, I don't know if she's atheist. I shouldn't say it. I don't think she is actually, but free thinkers often quote her. But she is one of my favorites. Her name, Leaving the Fold, Marlene Winnell, and it's for people who left fundamentalism. They can still are people who read it can still be religious, can still be believers, is myself, but if they come from a hardcore either scrupulosity or a strict form, then her book Leaving the Fold can also be very helpful. But it does come from a more humanistic viewpoint, just to let people know. And another book that has been helpful to me, and it talks about for people who've understood scrupulosity. This is a book that deals with religious melancholy, and that deals with it's partly scrupulosity, but it also deals with the issue that sometimes when a person, the same thing, I think, if a person's too strong in their conscience or following, um, they can literally, like in cults, become too swallowed up in their identity and their personality, um, to where they don't have much of an identity outside of it. And that's of every strict religious group or cult. Or and cult is it's kind of a vague term to throw around, but anyway, this is not about people. It's a cult, but this is a good book about a group of people that come out of religious melancholy and people who try to leave a strong religious group. And I don't think these group people they're not a cult or anything, but it's just certainly not. They don't go around killing people or nothing. They're pretty good people, but and it's called The Other Side of Joy. So that's the name of it, The Other Side of Joy. Anyway, um, anyway, if it'll help, I think the keywords, if you look in Google, I would look up scrupulosity. Um, that's a main one, OCD, and you can find some of the titles there. And whatever it is a person goes through, whether it's strict religion or humanism or apostasy, people who went from religious who become atheists, or people who become who were atheists who become religious. There's always people out there, so there's always people you can find that you can relate to, and relate with. Um, so I just encourage you to do some searching, and you'll be able to find it. So I'm Alan Brewer Nielsen, and the targeted individual, V2K and all. But anyway, I wanted to do one on scrupulosity, and to help people understand if they need help, what to look for, and to find the right type of books out there. All right, I'll talk to you later.